of Kings, Lord of Lords, you are holy, 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 holy.
Hey everybody, it's Roxy, Kyler, and Eli, and we have just heard Pastor Tim talking about aspiring to be forgivers. So last week we learned about making amends, and that means fixing something that we might have done wrong. So amend making would be if you accidentally broke someone's toy, buying them a new one, or if you drew on their artwork, maybe it's creating something together, right? So it's doing something to make right what you've done wrong. And then forgiving means truly being able to forgive someone and let go and move forward from whatever bad thing might have happened. And in this story, we, and kind of for the past few weeks so far, we've been learning about how the chosen people of God, the Israelites, have been journeying through the desert. And a lot of bad things have happened to them. They had Pharaoh, right? And Pharaoh was really, really mean to them. And they've had a lot of hardships and constant battles and oppression and people treating them unfairly. And I wonder if they've had to forgive people and just to move forward. So that's what today's lesson is. Enjoy. When God gave the people of God the 10 best ways to live, God also told Moses how they were to be kept. On their journeys, the people were to remember the Mount Sinai experience by taking the tabernacle with them. The tabernacle complex included both the ark and the tent of meeting. Inside the ark were the stone tablets inscribed with the 10 best ways, the 10 commandments. The wandering people experienced God, their God, as nomadic and free, walking with them in unconfined holy time. When the people of God came to the promised land, they settled down, and their experience of God changed. The tabernacle was set up in Shiloh, but it was lost to the Philistines in the Battle of Aphek. The Philistines returned it. When they experienced one trouble after another, there was much sickness, and the statue of their god, Dagon, fell on its face. The people of God brought the ark to Kiriath Jearim and kept it at the house of Abinab, who lived on a hill. The ark remained there for 20 years until King David brought it to Jerusalem. This is the story of that king. The people of God came into the promised land. When David became king, he collected all of the people of God from the north and the south into one group. He took Jerusalem from the Jebusite people and called it the city of David. They were no longer wandering in the desert, but instead lived in this one place. David and the people of God began to live in Jerusalem, but something was missing. It was the ark. David and his army went to get the ark. When they brought the ark back through the great high gate, King David danced before it. They set up the tent of meeting and put the ark inside. David was not allowed to build a house for God. God said that it was because King David was a man of war. His son, Solomon, would build the temple. All of the people had to help build the temple. Some went to the north to Lebanon, to cut down and bring some great cedar trees. They cut stones out of the mountains nearby and prepared the wood and stone to begin. The temple began to grow, and people were amazed. There was a great hall for people to come close to God in an inner room. This inner room was called the Holy of Holies. That is where the ark was. The high priest entered only on the Day of Atonement, the holiest day of the year. The temple was beautiful, with carvings of olive and gold. The great timbers of cedar made it smell so wonderful. Inside the temple, the same things helped them to get ready to meet God, just like when they were in the desert. The ark was carried inside by the priests. Here is the incense burner. Fragrant smoke filled the temple as the incense burned. Here is the table with the bread for each of the 12 tribes on it. And finally, here is the menorah with its 7 branches and lamps burning. On the day the priest first carried the ark inside, a great cloud of dazzling light filled the temple. God was here. In front of the temple was the altar, just as it had been in front of the tent. But now it was bigger. The same was true for the basin of water, but now it was greater. On the day that it was ready, the king came before all of the people. And the king prayed. King Solomon, who had built this temple, read aloud, "O Lord God of Israel, there is no God like thee in heaven above or on earth beneath, keeping covenant and showing steadfast love to thy servants who walk before thee with all their heart. But will God indeed dwell on earth? Behold, heaven and the highest heaven cannot contain thee. How much less this house which I have built? Yet have regard to the prayer of thy servant, to his supplication." He asked God to allow God's name to abide in the temple. He asked God to make this the place for people to come and pray and to find justice. Solomon ruled well. Solomon was wise, wiser than anyone in the world. His father, King David, had been famous for his songs and his war, but Solomon was famous for his wise sayings in this temple. Now, I wonder, what was your favorite part of this story? I wonder how you think King David felt when God did not want him to build the great big tabernacle. And instead he said, no, you can't do it, but your son will, King Solomon. I wonder if that hurt his feelings. Remember, because God said he was a man of war and he didn't want him building it. And I wonder if King David had to forgive God. I wonder if sometimes we get angry with God. I wonder if you've ever had to forgive anyone. I wonder if that was hard for you to do. In this story, we heard about how the people of God moved through the desert. And with them, they carried the 10 Commandments because it was a reminder of God. But they didn't have a church that they belonged to, a church that they could go to, right? They didn't even have houses. They were nomadic. So they constantly were living in tents. They even built a tent structure for housing these 10 Commandments. And we heard that this changed the way that the people of God experienced God and understood who God was. Because God was everywhere in the desert, right? Mm-hmm. But then as soon as they settled in Jerusalem, they said, well, now we need this great big elaborate tabernacle. We need the cedar from the woods. We need the rocks from the mountain. We need to build all of this stuff. We need to have the incense. And this is where we will have God. And that changed the way that people understood where and how God was with them. God was now in one place. I wonder how you feel now that we're not in church. I wonder if anyone has ever felt like God is only at church. I only need to act holy. I only need to act kind. I only need to be a good listener when I'm at church, because that's where God is. But I don't have to act like that the rest of the week. I wonder if anyone's felt like that. I wonder if anyone has had a hard time experiencing God now that we're not at church. Because that space is so holy to us. I wonder how you and your families might have experienced God elsewhere. I wonder if God is in nature. I wonder if you've been going on hikes. I wonder if you experienced God there, or to the lake, or to the boats, or maybe on bike rides with your family, maybe out in your garden. Maybe those are the spaces that have become holy for you and your family now that we're in quarantine. I would love to hear about those holy spaces for you. I'll see you next week.
Bye.